Welcome to Lawyer Business Advantage. This podcast is dedicated to helping attorneys earn more money, get better clients, and spend more time with family. I'm your host, Alay and founder of Law Firm Success Group. Smart business guidance for small law firms begins in 3, 2, 1. And it's my pleasure to welcome to Lawyer Business Advantage, Jeremy Poock, founder of Senior Attorney Match. Jeremy, how are you doing today?
Doing okay, LA. Really looking forward to the conversation.
Likewise, so Senior Attorney Match is not about recruiting, which is what someone might think. It's actually about buying and selling law firms, and this is something that a lot of people right now are really looking into. A lot of attorneys who listen are really looking into. Jeremy, tell us a little bit about Senior Attorney Match and how you got started.
Sure. Thanks so much. So Senior Attorney Match, as you said, we broker the sales and purchases of law firms. In some respects, there is some recruiting to it. So I'll get into that, LA. I'll also share with you now, thanks so much for asking about the background. So I'm an attorney by trade, probably should have gone stage right to business school instead of law school. Very interested, in business and am an entrepreneur by nature. So I gravitated pretty quickly after graduating law school to working with business brokers, helping business brokers to paper the deals that they were working on. This was in the early 2000s. And already then, they were focusing on the boomers, just hearing all the time. I mean, the boomers weren't even of full-fledged retirement age, but they saw it. They knew the writing was on the wall. And working with those business brokers, I started thinking to myself, wow, there's a lot of baby boomer attorneys out there. Who's brokering the sales of law firms? And that's where the light bulb went off. Did a lot of research. There's a particular rule of professional conduct that the American Bar Association introduced in 1990. All of the states that have adopted the ABA rules have that particular rule of professional conduct, Rule 1.17. We actually rarely utilize that rule, though, because the rule calls for a selling lawyer to notify all of his or her clients in advance of a sale, that the clients have the option to pick up their files. So, like, when I read that rule, LA, I sort of slouched, okay, because I mean the rules are meant as they should be to to protect clients and look out for the client's best interest. Yet that rule is not really so business friendly. And so we really give a lot of thought and gave a lot of thought when we launched the company in 2013 about, all right, how can we help lawyers that are entering into their boomer years? How can we help them sell their law practices? Because those books of business that so many lawyers have developed over the course of their careers, they absolutely have value. So I'm looking forward to discussing more with you, like how we structure them and how we value them and who wants to purchase law firms.
Yeah, and so let's just jump into it. And there's a couple of different things that I've encountered in my work with attorneys. The big question is that as a selling attorney, they want to know how much their law firm is worth. And oftentimes when we're looking at their cases like estate planning, they may not have any kind of an update plan. So they do the estate plan and then that's it, right? Unlike something like family law, where there's ongoing cases that can take a long time. How do you figure out what these law firms are worth?
Yeah, so that took us a long time to figure out too. And in a lot of respects, we explain to our clients that it's really hard to come up with an actual value of your law firm. And we structure most of our deals as a result as earnouts. Okay, so I referenced before about the book of business. Okay, we're all as lawyers developing a book of business over time. And year in and year out, a given law firm could have revenues in the 6 figures, 7 figures, sometimes eight figures plus. So often with the types of firms that we're dealing with, those firms have been developed by rainmaker attorneys where the clients are coming to that attorney. So the law firm's value is so much based on the personal goodwill of that
Yes.
attorney. So a buyer then says, okay, we see that you're doing $2 million in revenues per year. Let's use an example of yours as the estate planners. We get a lot of calls from estate planners. Okay. We see that you're doing $2 million a year in revenues as an estate planner. A certain amount is on the drafting of estate plans, and more because senior attorneys who are today in their 60s, 70s, heck, even into their 80s. Okay. Their clients were similarly aged to them when they wrote a lot of their plans. So there's a way of me getting to the fact that we have revenues from estate planners that are from drafting and also more and more from the admin side.
Right. Trust
Okay.
administration. Yeah. Maybe
It's
probate.
valuable. It's valuable. But to a buyer says, well, if the attorney isn't here, we don't know that those clients are going to continue with a buying firm. So as a result, rather than spend all types of money trying to come up with a value and predictions of, what the practice is worth based upon how it has performed in the past and come up with a dollar amount, let alone try to convince a bank, okay, that Will's Vault in this example is going to perform, we value the firms really simply, and we come up with a percentage of fee sharing on the collections that are attributable to the book of business. We define the book of business, what that is. That's the clients and the referral sources, generally speaking. We come up with the percentage of fee sharing on the collections that come in on that book of business over a negotiated period of time. And therefore, we're really able to avoid, in a lot of respects, a battle over how to value most practices.
That makes a lot of sense. And so what does an earnout look like? I assume there's a period of time where they're kind of working for the new firm with the new firm. There might be a kicker or bonus at the end. Like, what does that typically look
Yeah,
like?
it's a great question. So, like, I want to touch on something because you said working for the new firm, because that what we've also learned is that most senior attorneys that have been running their own practices and they want to sell their practice and typically join a firm because we're already identifying the lawyer needs to be there to what we call transfer the trust transfer of the clients and referral sources. But I just want to emphasize that when these sales happen, that the senior attorneys don't all of a sudden have a new boss. That's like the biggest concern. We hear two major things. We hear, on the one hand, I can't stand managing my office anymore. Like, why do I have to be here on a Monday morning, a Friday afternoon? Like, I'd rather be on the golf course, the beach, traveling, reading a book, or whatnot. But on the other hand, heck, I do not want to have a boss. Okay. So when our clients join firms, they don't have a boss. And to answer your question, depending on the given lawyer, like a lot of lawyers actually really like practicing law. Okay, they just can't stand managing the office. So our clients are typically practicing for X number of years, typically, but that's at significantly less of a pace than they've been used to for their career. And they're not being told that they have to put up some kind of crazy number of billable hours. The term of years is somewhere in the neighborhood of getting them a 1x of their gross revenues. So very typical deal terms that we see are 20% fee sharing for 5 years. Hence, in that example that we said before, of let's say the estate planning firm was doing $2 million a year. Okay. Our goal is for our clients to get paid $2 million, albeit as that 20% for 5 years. We sometimes try to get longer years. We sometimes try to get higher percentages. There's certain higher percentages in given practice areas. We do a lot of work in the personal injury law space, for example. So standard in PI, of course, is a third. Can be even higher on higher value matters. So it really depends on the practice area. But what we're seeing,
Right.
having done this for about 10 years now, a little more than 10 years, is a 1x of gross revenues is a goal that our clients are looking for.
It's a lot of similarities there to like CPA firms that are getting bought and sold. And then at the end of that period of time, that 5-year period of time, what happens with the attorney? They get to ride off into the sunset or
Sure. And actually, let's deliver some really good news,
yeah.
okay, for the senior attorney, because they can ride off into the sunset a lot earlier. Like the fascinating thing about trust transfer, A, is that it works. Okay. And most senior attorneys have experienced that over the course of their careers. So they're the rainmakers. They hire associates. They bring in a client, walk down the hall and say, okay, Amanda, I want to introduce you to this client. Here's the facts. Amanda, can you contact the client, meet with the client? Trust transfer happens internally. Same thing happens when they join a growing law firm. Okay. In today's Zoom age, Okay. And we never would have wanted COVID. I mean, what a tragedy that we all lived through in the, in 2020. Of course, COVID just not only did it pivot us, but it thrusted us forward digitally. And so we have clients today that can be, I'm here in the Northeast, so it's easy enough to give an example of the lawyer in the Northeast that is now spending 3 to 4 months in Florida, okay, or somewhere warmer in the colder months. And a client sends an email, leaves a voice message, sends a text, and then that trust transfer can happen over a Zoom interface or Teams interface. Senior attorney literally goes on that Zoom meeting, doesn't need to go back into the office, doesn't need to get on a telephone call. It's great to do it face to face in the digital sphere, and transfer that trust. Spend that time, let's say with that person, Amanda in our example, introduce Amanda to the client, literally 5, 10 minutes, back outside into the warmer weather.
Awesome. That sounds like a great situation for the selling attorney. Let's shift gears, Jeremy. Let's talk about the purchasing firm. Um, and I'm sure you get all different sizes and shapes of purchasing firms. But for you, what are you looking for when you're vetting potential firms that want to grow by acquisition?
Yeah, it's a great question. Thanks a lot. So here we'll use a real estate analogy. Okay, of what we see is the best purchasing firm is a like kind firm. Okay, that is. Let's go back, please, to our estate planning example.
Yeah.
So the estate planner who has written 1,000, 2,000 wills, the best buyer for that estate planning firm is a growing estate planning firm that's geographically compatible to the selling firm. They are like kind, and that growth by acquisition, we can use in this real estate analogy is like, all right, if we're building our building here, okay, and we have multiple floors of our building as the growing firm that we're organically growing with estate planning, estate administration, elder law, and then we've got a building next door that does real estate and corporate and other types of transactional type work. If we grow by acquisition, we're automatically adding another building, okay, right next to what we're growing. And we as the purchasing firm, we can capably handle the work. And getting back to that trust transfer, senior attorney is able to say, look, I've just joined a like kind law firm, and their partners, their associates have been doing the same work as we have, and you are in great hands. And the best purchaser, we're saying, is really the mirror image of the senior attorney from like 20 years ago. So our typical buyers are in their late 30s, into their 40s, and then into their early 50s of a
And
like kind law firm.
that makes a lot of sense. And I'm guessing that on the buyer side, you have a lot of repeat buyers because, acquiring a law firm is probably one of those things where the first time a firm does it, it's really tough. But it's something that the second time they do it, the third time they do it, it gets easier and easier and easier, and they're just knocking them out.
Yeah. Yeah. You know what? This hasn't happened yet in a podcast that, interview. Like, I'm getting goosebumps, right? Because you're exactly right. Because and that's what we see in the marketplace, right? Is because these aren't turnkey. It's not like you have a bunch of subways, in LA and you want to expand into San Diego. So like you've got the whole manual, right? So when a growing firm, a purchasing firm does the first one, I'm always calling it like the analogy is like to an airplane and it's turbulent getting up to cruising altitude. Once you get to that cruising altitude and you've got those kinks out of the way and you know how to do it, you're absolutely right that the growing firms realize like, okay, like this works. Okay, this is a great way to grow. And then, yeah, using that estate planning example is like, let's purchase another estate planning group because now we've got our core group here. We know what the drafters need to do. We know what the estate and trust admin people need to do. We know what the real estate folks need to do. We know how to market to the client list because that's huge, right? Like, what are we really buying here as the purchasing firm? I mean, it's so hard to develop new clients and so competitive. And if you can take on 1,000+ new clients and not pay for it up front in today's marketplace, it's a great way to grow.
Totally. And I guess that's the other point, right? Is you don't have to make this big capital investment as a purchasing firm. You're basically paying as you go. There may be some IT and consulting and that kind of thing and insurance and all that, but most of it is pay as you go.
Absolutely. There's absolutely, like we said before, some growing pains, okay? But like we call those the soft costs of integration is markedly different than most businesses when there's a significant down payment, at a closing table, let alone, paying for, the entire business upfront.
Awesome. Um, so I mean, we can be chatting about this for a very long time, but when we're talking about those acquiring law firms, how does a attorney know, or what are some things they should look for that say, yes, I am ready to get out there and acquire another firm?
Yeah, sure. So we look at growing law firms, and going back to a real estate type metaphor here, of you're building buildings and you've got and you have underneath your building, you have a foundation, right? So the building you're building floor by floor, foundations are that you already have clients. So, right, you have a successful going concern. You've got the lawyers and support staff that can do the work in your practice areas that you've got good experience in. You've developed goodwill in your legal community. Okay. And of course, you're profitable. Okay. And so you're looking to how do I bring in new clients? So if you've got that foundation in place and you're already building the building, okay, so the acquirer that's thinking to him or herself, that the owners of growing firms are thinking, how do we go out and grow? Well, maybe we should just pump up more digital content. Let's just buy more, invest more in PPC. Let's purchase Google AdWords. Let's continue the old school way and belong to all types of networking groups and whatnot. So we just look at this as a way of we're expanding the pie of options when you're ready to grow because you've got that great foundation. Okay. And so you're adding organically. The acquirer that is organically looking to grow should see this as a way to, wow, we can instantly grow. We call it instant client growth when you've taken on a senior attorney-led firm.
Very cool. I love the idea. I love the concept. I expect you have a lot of people on both sides looking to do some business with you. And that brings me to, ensuring that this is going to be a successful transition. It's just not easy. I mean, you're taking, an attorney or attorneys who are typically probably pretty set in their ways and combining with other attorneys who are also set in their ways. Both are successful, so there may be some ego there too. And neither of them are used to doing a merger of any kind. So there's cultural challenges that have to be addressed. What are some of the things that you do, or what are some of the things you recommend that your clients do to ensure that that merger is successful and then the firm continues to grow after?
Sure. So I think as we all know, right, when it comes to M&A, right, the A acquisition is much easier than the M, the merger. And so we've experienced that as well. We call it the second day effect, right? Because I mean, we're working with lawyers and we come up with a great agreement. Everybody sees the opportunity and we're going to integrate both firms together. Day one, of course, like everybody gets together, they go out for lunch, go out for drinks afterwards. Day two is like, all right, what do we do now? Okay. So yes, thanks so much for the question. We've learned the importance of integration consulting. And there we recommend that the first 180 days have a lot of structure. And because we analogize this to like an airplane, okay, that an airplane taking off, and then when it can be a bumpy rise to cruising altitude, being prepared for that. Here, it's not like getting to cruising altitude in 20 minutes. We actually recommend that we look at it over 180 days. And we really recommend bringing in a business coach, okay, or someone else that can have the ability to empathize with both sides, because you're absolutely right. You're taking people that have run their own successful businesses, bringing them together, let alone what's really fascinating is the generational gap. Okay. Currently, we're still in boomers joining firms led by Gen Xers, or boomers, joining firms led by millennials. Stated differently, as the growing firm, ready for this? You're welcoming in like mom or dad, okay, into your practice in terms of, hey, this is how we've always done it. Which is then juxtaposed by the younger growing firm saying, hey, wait a second, this is how we do it here. So it's very important. We recommend, and what we've learned is like first 30 days, we call it the listening tour. Just like listen, listen, listen. Just listen to what each side does. Try not to pass judgment and just listen. And the next like 30 to 60 days, it's about adjusting to each other and then adapting to each other. Okay, so adjust and adapt, and then after that, they can start growing together. We found that if they just hit the ground running, that they run into problems, and then things get stuck in the mud, and it's not nearly as successful as it should be. So that first 180 days is critical after two firms come together.
Yeah, the devil really is in the details, isn't it? I'm sure it varies widely depending on the practice area of both the firms and what they're up to and geography and the size of the firms and all of those things, right? Every one of these deals is probably different.
It is. I don't want to have your podcast kicked off the airwaves, but I'll share because I'll share with you no matter what, regardless of practice type, both sides are treated as we call, and as I learned as a 15-year-old, the FNG. Okay, that they both sides look at it at each other as that. The NG is new guy. The F, I will not fill in the blank on that one. Okay. But it's exactly what happens, because what happens is the senior attorney comes in and says, well, those FNGs on the other side, they keep telling me what to do. And the growing firm says about the senior attorney, and particularly interestingly, the senior attorney staff, it's hard to change.
Yeah.
And so the senior attorney, the growing firm and their staff could look at the senior attorney and their staff as FNGs. So no matter what, there's always FNGs. Okay. And we just tell our clients when they're going to join a firm, as well as the buyer, just expect during that listening tour, please, everybody thinks of each other as an FNG. And we'll get over it, and then we'll grow together.
Awesome. So you take those FNGs and turn them into VNGs. So very nice guys or gals.
Yeah, it's true. And you know what? There's always something. It's funny because from my perspective, I always get the call. Like I always get the call from both sides. Like I can't believe like this is driving us nuts. I'm like, okay, we're in the FNG stage. It's okay. And then they just turn the corner on something because they realize, and that's why we really emphasize that 180 days. Say, let's just focus on this, because keep in mind, we're bringing in $2 million worth of new revenues for you. Let's keep our eye on the ball. Just because the senior attorney, and this is an example from from an estate planning. It's not like we just work with estate planners, but it offers a lot of interesting examples, because senior attorney has his own forms that he's used his entire career. The growing firm, similar to many growing firms today, uses a platform, right? They use Wealth Counsel. Many firms use Wealth Counsel, okay? Right. But the senior attorney was adamantly against it. And the growing firm was smart enough. Instead of saying, hey, we're the new sheriff in town, you must adopt Wealth Counsel. They said, you know what? For your clients, for your drafting, just do it the way you've always done it. Your legal secretary is still working with you. You'll do it the old way. Just please don't get in our way when we want to use Wealth Counsel for all of your other clients that other lawyers are going to work with. And he said, fine, that works. They adapted, they adopted.
Yep. And they were reasonable. Oh my gosh.
And they were reasonable. Very good.
Well, Jeremy, this is awesome. What are some things you are looking forward to over the next, I don't know, year or so with Senior Attorney Match?
Thanks so much. Our goal is really to help lawyers that are running their own practices and have questions about what is it worth? What's my practice worth? And who would want to purchase it? We're typically working with the senior attorneys. We welcome conversations with growing firms. By and large, Senior Attorney Match, we match senior attorneys with growing firms. So those firms that have developed in particular niche practice areas, we love helping them anywhere in the country if they have questions about what's it worth and who wants to purchase it.
Fantastic. And Jeremy, if people want to reach out and connect with you, what's the best way for them to do that?
Sure. Thanks so much. So the website, seniorattorneymatch.com. Also very active on LinkedIn. So feel free to Google me, find me on LinkedIn, connect on LinkedIn. We publish daily content to LinkedIn.
Jeremy, thank you so much. Really appreciate you sharing those insights. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Yeah, for me too. Thanks so much, Alay. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Take care.
And that's a wrap for this episode of the Lawyer Business Advantage podcast. One thing that would really help both us and other new potential listeners is for you to rate this show and leave a comment in iTunes, Stitcher, or wherever you tune in to listen. And I want to hear from you. So connect with me on LinkedIn and let me know what you think of this episode. And if you are a solo or an owner of a small law firm and you're looking to earn more money, attract better clients, or reduce your stress, we would love to talk with you to see how we can help. Request your free law firm assessment by visiting lawfirmsuccessgroup.com. Again, that URL is lawfirmsuccessgroup.com. We look forward to talking with you soon. Thank you for listening. My name is Alay and Until next time, remember, you can seize freedom, you can embrace happiness, you can build your perfect practice.